Hey friends, it's Sean from Mind Possible, and in this video we're not only going to talk about remote viewing but also remote influencing, and also a theory I have about how the universe works, which might explain why associative remote viewing isn't as accurate as we wish it was. If you've done ARV before, you know the experience of doing such a great job during your viewing session that your transcript really matches up with one of the possible feedback images, and you do the prediction and the other outcome happens, and you wonder, why did that happen? Why couldn't I predict the future when my transcript matched that potential feedback image so well? So your remote viewing was excellent, but it didn't do a darn thing for helping you predict the outcome of whatever event you were trying to predict. So this video talks about something that might help with that, and my theory of the universe that explains why it's such a problem. Actually, I'm making this video because I made a mistake with the previous video I made with my friends, the one where I talk about how they used seeing through a blindfold to practice seeing numbers directly, or using direct perception. And in that experiment, they also had to use punishment and reward food. If you haven't seen that video, I put a link to it. Just open this video up on a YouTube page and look in the description section of this video, and the link is there if you want to watch that other video. But one thing I forgot to talk about in that video presentation was, after we did our prediction, that was in the late morning, we knew that the number would be drawn around 1:30. That's what it says on the lottery website, that the midday drawing for the Pick 3 in Colorado happens around 1:30. And we ended up predicting two different sets of numbers. I think it was 452 and 457. We couldn't nail it down to three numbers only. So we had these two sets of numbers, and I thought this was a great opportunity not only to just be the victim of consequences or the victim of whatever future holds for us, but maybe there was a way we could sway the future. Maybe there was a way we could cause the desired result to happen. So instead of just waiting to see what the lottery numbers are on the website by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, what could we do to make our prediction come true? And I thought this is a great chance to try some remote influencing. And normally that phrase is used in terms of influencing another person with your thoughts. But in this case, I was hoping we could try and influence which lottery numbers would be drawn. So what I did was I chose one of my favorite songs of all time that really touches my heart, and I think would touch most people's hearts. And that song is called Thank You by Alanis Morissette. I can't play it here because of copyright laws on YouTube, but you can look it up, and I'll put a link also down in the description if you want to play it for yourself. But what I did was I asked all my friends to listen to the song while looking at the two sets of lottery numbers that we had predicted, and to generate a feeling of love, kindness, compassion, and just open up their heart energy while looking at these numbers. And I think they all did a great job focusing on the heart opening instead of really trying to nail down the numbers, because it seems like those two efforts might be in conflict with each other. But essentially the formula was listen to the song, open your heart, and look at these two sets of numbers, and we'll see if that influences which numbers are drawn. And what ended up happening was the 4 was drawn and the 5 was drawn, and as you see, both of those numbers were in both sets of the potential or the predicted winning numbers we had selected. So something about the 4 and the 5, we were looking at it while we're opening our hearts with this beautiful music, and those two numbers ended up being drawn. You know, of course, it's not proof of anything, but I think it's interesting enough to share with you, because I've had this conversation with other viewers at different conferences about, what if we did more than just try to predict the outcome of an event, but what if we tried to influence the outcome after predicting it? So we're doing two things to work in our favor, and maybe that would skew the results a little bit. Now here's the part where I talk about my theory of the universe and why ARV, or associative remote viewing, doesn't work as well as we wish it did. I mean, if it was a perfect system, everybody would be predicting every lottery, we'd be predicting the outcome of every sports game, people would be predicting the stock market perfectly, everyone would be doing really great. But as we know, a success rate of 60-65% is reasonable to expect, and some great people do even higher than that. But nobody does a high percentage rate of success consistently for a long period of time. We all have ups and downs. So why is that? Why do we sometimes have such a great transcript that accurately represents one of the feedback images, yet the opposite outcome happens? Well, have you ever heard of this theory of the universe called the block theory? I won't describe it here, but basically if you think of the universe as a block, and instead of representing just 3 dimensions, it represents 4. It represents space and time. It says that everything in the past, present, and future in all space and time already exists in this block universe. And the thing about the block universe, it says that everything is already fixed. So that's why you should be able to accurately predict something in the future or remote view something in the past. And many of you have had that conversation about how remote viewing works better when you're trying to see something that already happened or is happening in the present, but the future is more difficult. Why is that? And that's why I came up with my theory of the Jello universe. I wish this piece of Jello was more like a cube, but it's really tough to make Jello in that form, at least for me. But the Jello universe theory that I've come up with seems to explain why ARV doesn't work as well as we wish it would. Okay, so imagine a block of Jello. That it's essentially the same as the block universe, except that it jiggles. But let's pick out a couple points in space and time within this Jello universe. And to do that, I'm going to use raisins. And so if we inject a raisin in one part of this Jello universe, that's a specific place in the universe at a certain time. And let's call this first raisin where the remote viewer is during their remote viewing session. So it's a specific place in time. And the event they're trying to predict, let's say it's this other raisin, and we'll insert it over here. And that's at a specific place and time. And so when the viewer is doing their viewing, they're sending their consciousness across space and time to the other raisin, to the event they're trying to predict. They receive information, and that's what they put down on their transcript. And if it were truly a fixed block universe, they'd be completely accurate all the time. But the thing is, this happens to be more of a Jello universe, subject to causes and conditions that are always shifting. And a little lottery number, imagine a ping pong ball being drawn out of a basket with a certain number on it. It's so random, it's pretty free of causes and conditions, and it's really subject to slight changes in reality. So if the Jello of the Jello universe wiggles a little bit, what would have been, let's say, the number 7 being drawn ends up being a different number entirely. But sometimes it doesn't jiggle that way, and it jiggles the other way, and the number that we did predict ended up being the one being drawn. And this really just applies to the most random, most insignificant, the most independent events in reality. So a lottery number is a perfect example of that. But let's say we're trying to predict something more substantial, like the outcome of a football game. So let's use another raisin for that. We'll put that raisin right here in the middle. The football game happens to occur at a different place and a different time in the universe. But it's more substantial. There are more causes and effects involved with the outcome of an entire football game. What's going on with both quarterbacks and the defensive line? What's going on with the fans? What's going on with the weather and all that? So many causes and conditions for the mind to draw upon for its information. So even when the universe jiggles a little bit, although the lottery number might flick back and forth a lot, that football game is going to keep with the same outcome. Now the universe could jiggle a little more, changing the outcome. And what would happen? Something really massive would have to occur throughout the whole universe to change sufficient number of causes and conditions to produce another outcome. So instead of one team winning, then the other wins, because something really significant happened. But a lottery number, just a little bit of a jiggle, flickers back and forth. And if you're lucky, you get it just right, and you win. And that's happened to my friends a couple times, but we've also just gotten 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 plenty of times. So here's where using the remote influencing or the heart energy or the psychokinesis, however way you want to regard it, that's where we apply it. That maybe with that lottery number in that space and time, when you send it a little bit of love, it stabilizes that moment in space-time, even though the jello around it seems to be wiggling a little bit. So maybe it's a stabilizing factor to imbue a specific moment in space-time with love or attention and intention. And maybe that's why we got 2 out of 3 this last time, because we did that exercise listening to Alanis Morissette and getting really emotional while looking at those numbers. So it's all hypothetical. It's not even theoretical, because how can you test it out? But I do invite you to test this out. If you have things you want to try and predict using ARV, what if at the moment the event actually happens, you open your heart or use some sort of energetic attention into that moment to try and shift or jiggle the universe in the direction you'd like it to go. And of course, this has much larger implications for your life. So it's not just about these fun little predictions we do, but how does this affect your personal life? Anyway, I at least hope you thought that was interesting. Just a lot of questions to talk about and things to try out. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.